Hey, welcome to the series of everything you need to know about Python in simplest possible way. In the series of pattern printing, so far we have seen so many patterns. In this video, we will see how we can print this particular pattern. So to print this particular pattern, let's divide this particular pattern into two pieces, and after that we will combine those two pieces and we will get this whole pattern. So for that, what I will be doing is that first I will try to print this particular above pattern. Later we will try to print this particular below pattern. After that we will combine both of these patterns so that we will get this single pattern whole together. So for that reason, in order to print this particular pattern, I will take a variable rows. So in this rows variable, I will assign a value 5, because if you carefully see this pattern, we are having 5 rows. For that reason, I am assigning rows with 5. So later what I will be doing is that if you carefully see this pattern, we not only having numbers, but we are also having spaces. So to print spaces, I will keep track spaces with a variable spaces. Initially, I will assign these spaces with rows minus 1, because if you carefully see here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out of 5 positions, one position is occupied by a number and the remaining positions are occupied by spaces. For that reason, I am mentioning rows minus 1. We can actually mention this as 4 itself. But if we change the value of rows to some other number, these values will be get impacted. For that reason, I am mentioning this as rows minus 1, so that even if the value of rows 5 to some other number changes, we still have these spaces as some fixed value, which is rows minus 1. So for that reason only I am mentioning it as rows minus 1. Later what I will be doing is that to get this particular rows, I will use a for loop to get all of these rows only. So for that reason, I'm using for I in range, I will be generating a range of values. So what are all the range of values? So I will start with 1, I will go till rows plus 1, because if you see here, we are having 5, right? So I want to go till the value of 5. For that reason only, I am mentioning rows plus 1, because range function only take the value till what we have mentioned to the previous value. So if I mention rows simply, it will take rows minus 1 value. So for that reason, I am mentioning rows plus 1. So in the for loop, before actually getting this particular pattern, let us understand what we are having in the value in the variable I. For that reason, I am printing I here. So if we carefully see here, we are having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we are also having this pattern as 1 in the first row, 2 in the second row, 3 in the third row. Like that we are having these values. So by using this I variable, can we get this particular pattern? So yes, we can get this particular pattern by using this I variable. So for that reason, if you carefully see this pattern, the first row we have 1, the second row we have 2 twos, the third row we have 3 threes. Can you observe any pattern in these lines? So the value, the variable I is repeating on each row, right? So that is what we have understood and we can understood by this pattern. So we need to print these values based on this particular I. So these values are repeating, right? So what we generally do when a statement is repeating, we use loops, right? So in this for loop, we will use one more for loop for j in range. Now we need to generate range of values. So what are all the range of values we can generate? So now what I will be doing is that I will start with 1. I will go till the value I, because based on this value I only, we can actually generate this. We have actually understand by printing this particular I, right? So for that reason, I will start with 1. I will go till I plus 1, which is otherwise means I will go till the value I. So in this, what I will be mentioning is that I will just mention to print the value I, because based on this value I only, we can actually get this particular pattern, right? So we have understood by this. So if I execute this, we can able to get some numbers but not exactly the pattern. So if we can understand this, we are actually getting the numbers. 1 is 1 time, 2 is 2 times, 3 is 3 times, 4 is 4 times, 5 is 5 times. We're actually getting these numbers, but not exactly the pattern. So to get the pattern, what we will be doing is that we will use an end statement, and this end statement will be used with spaces. By default, this end parameter in print will be having a new line character. For that reason, we are getting these particular things in the new line. If I execute this, I can able to get this particular pattern, get these numbers, values in the single line. But that is not also what we wanted. So in order to get this kind of a pattern, we need to use a print here after completion of this inner for loop, because as and when this outer for loop executed, we are directly going to the inner for loop. After completion of this inner for loop, we are directly going to outer for loop. So to break that, to have something after completion of this inner for loop, I am using a print. By default, this print end parameter will be having a new line character. So if I execute this, we can able to get this particular pattern, but this is not also what we wanted. We want this kind of a pattern which involves spaces. I have actually mentioned before, actually printing these spaces, we cannot actually print this particular pattern. So where and when, how we can put these spaces is that as and when we come inside of this outer for loop, if we could print a space, we can actually having these spaces, and after the spaces we can print these particular numbers, and the loop will get repeated. So for that reason, I will use a print here, and in this print I will use spaces. So I am taking a spaces by using string multiplication. I am actually trying to print these particular spaces before actually printing these numbers. So I am using spaces, and for the end parameter I'm using nothing. So if we don't use this particular end parameter, it will take us to the new line. So that is not what we wanted. For that reason only, I am mentioning this end parameter as nothing. So if we execute this, still we don't get the exact pattern, but let's see what we can get. So we are getting this particular pattern. All spaces are having before this particular pattern. So why it is happening is that we need to modify these variable spaces to get this particular pattern. If you see this pattern, the spaces are reducing on each iteration. So we need to reduce the value of spaces here. For that reason, I will use spaces minus equal to 1. So if I mention like this, the value of spaces will be reduced on each iteration. If I execute this, we can able to get this particular pattern. So next what we need to do is that we need to so you can observe this pattern as we can get this particular above pattern. So now what we need to do is that we need to get this below pattern to actually complete this whole pattern. For that reason, what I will be doing is that as like above pattern, we will try to print this below pattern. So for that, I will use a for loop to generate these rows here initially. For I will use a variable k in range. Now range. Now, what are all the range of values that we need to generate is that if you carefully see here, we have achieved this 5. So, we can actually start with 4 and go till the value 1, right? So, for that reason, what I will be doing is that I will use rows minus 1, means I am starting with rows minus 1, which is of 4, and I will go up to the value 0, which otherwise means to go up to the value 1. So, to go to 1, I'm actually mentioning 0. So because you know, right? So it won't consider 0, it will stop with 1 itself. And each iteration I am increasing these values minus 1. So that is what I am doing by using this range function. We are actually generating this range of values from how many number of rows that we are having till the value 1. So in the for loop, what I will be doing is that if we print the value k here, we can actually get these values of 4, 3, 2, 1. As like above pattern, we have converted this 1, 2, 3, 4 into this particular pattern. Now also we can convert this 4, 3, 2, 1 values into something like this. So for that reason, what I will be doing is that I will use one more for loop in this outer for loop. For we have actually used k here, I will use one more variable which is L. For L in range, I will use a range of values starting with 1 and go till k plus 1, because we have understood that by using this k plus 1 we can actually generate this particular pattern by the assumption that by using I previously we have actually generated this pattern, right? For that reason only I'm starting with 1. I'm going till the value of k plus 1. So in this, what I will be doing is that I will simply print the value of k. So if I execute this, I can able to get the values here: 4 fours, 3 threes, and 2 twos, and single 1. So the only thing what we need to do here is that we need to arrange these particular values to get the whole pattern. So come with me, let us go quickly. So I am mentioning an end parameter to get these particular spaces in a single line. So after that, what we will be doing is that we will print a print statement, empty print statement, to get the new line character on each iteration. So if we execute this, we can able to get this particular pattern: 4 fours, 3 threes, and single 1. So the only thing what we need to do is that we need to print spaces here, right? So that we can observe in this pattern. So to print spaces, what I will be doing is that as and when I come to the outer for loop, I will print spaces. For that, I am using print, and I will use the spaces. By using string multiplication, we can actually print these particular spaces. I'm mentioning an end to nothing. So after that, what we need to do is that we need to increase these spaces, right? So on each iteration, the spaces are increasing. For that reason, I am using spaces plus equal to 1. So by using this places plus equal to 1, we can actually increase these spaces on each iteration. If I execute this, we are getting some different pattern here. That is not what we have expected. The reason is we are getting mismatched with these spaces. So where exactly this is went wrong is that we are using these spaces with these spaces also. So we are reusing this variable. So if we know the value inside of these spaces, we can actually modify that and get accordingly pattern. So here we are having the spaces as -1. So in this row, when it comes, it will become -1, and in this row, it will become 0. In this row, it will become 1. So for that reason only, the space is starting here. So if we change these spaces something so that we can get the one space in here itself. So for that, what we need to do is that we need to increment the spaces by 2, right? When we increment by 2, we will convert the spaces into 0 on first increment. We will convert this 0 into 1 on the second increment. For that reason, what I will be doing is that I will mention spaces plus equal to 2. So I am incrementing the spaces with 2. So for that reason only I am mentioning this. So I am commenting this. If I execute this, we can actually get this whole pattern that what we have expected, right? So now you can able to see this whole pattern as together by combining this whole code. So I hope you can able to understand this pattern. If not, I will suggest you to watch out this video one more time so that you can able to understand this whole pattern is getting by this logic. So what I will be doing now is that we will take this rows variable dynamically from the user and print accordingly this pattern. So for that reason, I am using input. I'm asking user to enter rows. So if I execute this, it was asking me to enter rows. If I give value as 6, I can able to get this pattern starting with 1 going till 6 and again coming towards 1. So if I give one more number, let's say I am giving 9 here. So still we can able to get the pattern starting with 1 going till 9 and coming till 1. So like this we can able to generate any kind of this particular pattern using any value by this logic. So I hope you can able to understand. And if you found this video interesting, hit the like button. And in the next video, we will see how we can actually print this particular pattern. So to stay updated, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications to all so that whenever I upload any video, you will get the notification. So thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one.